Welcome to episode 88 of EDH Commander Challenge. I'm your host, BT. A couple things to mention real quick before we get started. First things first, later on this week is the birthday of one of the most important people in my life. Of course, I'm talking about my awesome girlfriend, Emma. And as you guys are my extended family, my EDHCC family, if you will, if you wouldn't mind in the comments down below, if you could just wish her a happy early birthday. Her birthday's a little bit later on this week. And of course to you, Emma, directly, thank you so much for being a positive influence in my life. And all the times I felt like I couldn't handle it anymore, you've always been there to have my back. I am grateful that I met you, and I am forever grateful that you're a part of my life. Much love. Now someone's probably playing the violin saying, get to the games already. I'll do just that. But first, before we do that, Jimmy has asked for the floor for a couple of moments just to address something he said he wanted to address last week but didn't have the time. So Jimmy, go ahead. Whatever you want to say, the floor is yours.
Hello everyone, this is Jimmy, part of EDH Commander Challenge, brought to you by BT Game Night. To all our supporters, I'd like to apologize for certain misplays I've been doing as of late on the channel. Whether it's from fatigue or whether from work, considering I do pretty late nights. I'd like to just apologize for any misplays I've been doing and try to guarantee you guys that I'll be doing a better job of reading my cards and making sure I do better plays. Thanks for listening. Thanks.
Wow. Well, Mr. Jimmy, on behalf of the EDHCC family as well as our playgroup members, really appreciate that, my man. That took honesty, that took being kind, that took being humble to say what you just said. So once again, really, really appreciate that. And like Jimmy says, we do our best each and every week to, make sure to avoid any and all misplays or errors that could occur. We even give shout-outs on the channel when people point out errors that we didn't catch because we appreciate it, because after all, that helps improve our game for the future. So once again, appreciate that, Jimmy. Now, without any further ado, let's go check out those opening hands. First, we have Mark playing his Azorius style Brago King Eternal deck. His opening hand consists of Gitaxian Probe, Detention Sphere, Serum Visions, Sun Titan, Tezzeret the Seeker, a Plains, and an Island. Then we have the Philip playing his Golgari style Skullbriar the Walking Grave deck. His opening hand consists of Greater Good, Growing Rights of Itlamok, Lead the Stampede, Mosswort Bridge, Bajuka Bog, Tainted Wood, and a Swamp. Phil won the dice roll and will start us off. Let's go! Phil plays a Mosswort Bridge and hides away a card before passing. Mark plays an Island and casts Serum Visions, passing while he resolves its effect to save some time. Phil plays a Swamp and casts Skullbriar the Walking Grave and attacks right away with his Skullbriar, dealing 1 damage to Mark, putting a +1/+1 counter on it in the process. Then he passes. Mark plays a Plains and casts Merchant Scroll. With it, he adds an Arcane Denial from his deck to his hand. Then he passes. Phil plays Tainted Wood and casts Growing Rights of Itlamok. He gains a Machias the Unhowled after looking at his top 4 cards. He then moves into combat and attacks with his Skullbriar for 2 damage, gaining another +1/+1 counter. Then he passes. Mark pays 2 life to cast Gitaxian Probe, revealing Phil's hand. It contains Bajuka Bog, Llanowar Wastes, Forest, Greater Good, Machias the Unhowled, and Lead the Stampede. After which, Mark draws a card. He then plays Adarkar Wastes and passes. Phil plays a Forest and casts Lead the Stampede. But Mark counters it with a Mana Drain, taking 1 damage from using his Adarkar Wastes for a blue mana. Phil then moves into combat and attacks with Skullbriar, this time for 3 damage. And yet again, his general gets stronger with another +1/+1 counter. Then he passes. Mark gains 3 colorless mana from Mana Drain during his first main phase. He uses 2 of it to cast Ichor Wellspring, allowing him to draw a free card. Then uses the last of it, along with the rest of his open mana, to cast his general, Brago, King Eternal, and passes. Phil plays Reliquary Tower and casts Greater Good. Then he moves into combat and attacks with his Skullbriar. Mark chooses not to block it and takes 4 damage, which now gives yet another +1/+1 counter to the already powerful Skullbriar. Then he passes. Mark plays an island and casts Detention Sphere, targeting Skullbriar. Phil responds by sacrificing it to Greater Good, returning it to its command zone with all of its counters in tow. Then he draws 5 cards and discards 3. Then Mark moves into combat and attacks with his Brago for 2 damage. With its trigger, Mark blinks his Wellspring, his General, and Detention Sphere. As a result, he draws an extra card, and he uses his Sphere for exiling Greater Good. Then he passes. Phil plays Forge of Heroes and recasts his general, Skullbriar. He then uses the Forge of Heroes effect, tapping it and placing an extra +1/+1 counter on his general. Then he moves into combat and attacks Mark with it. Mark chooses again not to block it in a pretty gutsy move now, taking 6 damage and is now 1 attack away from lethal commander damage. Of course, Skullbriar gets another +1/+1 counter, and then Phil passes. Mark plays Command Tower and casts Reality Acid on Skullbriar. Then he moves into combat and attacks with Brago again for 2. With its trigger, he blinks this time his Wellspring, Brago himself, and his Acid, which causes Skullbriar to get sacrificed, which Phil allows it to go into his graveyard. Mark draws an extra card from Wellspring and enchants the Mosswort Bridge with the Acid before passing the turn. Phil plays a Swamp and casts Varolz the Scar Striped. Phil then scavenges Skullbriar in his graveyard, which he then chooses to move to his command zone as it's being exiled, placing a large amount of +1/+1 counters on Varolz. Then he passes. Mark plays a Plains and casts Augury Owl, allowing him to scry 3 as it comes into play. Then he moves into combat and attacks with his Brago again for 2 more damage. With its trigger, he blinks his Wellspring, Owl, Brago himself, and the Acid. The Acid causes the Mosswort Bridge to get sacrificed. When it returns into play, it then enchants Varolz himself. Then he scries 3 from his Owl and draws an extra card from his Wellspring before passing. Phil plays a Thespian Stage and casts Butcher of Malakir to stop Brago's onslaught. However, Mark pretty much just says, "No sir," and casts another counterspell in the form of Arcane Denial. Phil moves into combat and attacks with Varolz. Mark blocks with his Augury Owl, which dies, and then he passes. During Mark's upkeep, he draws an extra card to the effect of Arcane Denial, while Phil gets to draw 2 extra cards. Then Mark casts Peregrine Drake, which has a very Palinchron-like effect to it, where he gets to untap 5 lands. Then he casts Tezzereth the Seeker. He uses its -3 ability to search out from his deck and put into play the 3 casting cost Basalt Monolith. Then he casts Glen Alendra Archmage. Finally, he moves into combat and attacks with his Brago for 2 damage. With its trigger, he blinks, this is going to be a mouthful, his Wellspring, his Tezzereth, his Brago, his Drake, his Acid, and his Monolith. Whew! This causes Varolz to be sacrificed as a result. When the Acid comes back in, it's now attached to Thespian Stage. Mark then untaps 5 lands thanks to the Drake, and draws an extra card thanks to his Wellspring. He then plays a Mystic Gate for his land for the turn. and then uses -1 this time on Tezzeret to search out Sensei's Divining Top from his deck to play. Finally, he casts Sun Titan, bringing back his Augury Owl, and scrying 3 with it. Then, he passes. That was a pretty crazy turn. Phil plays a Forest and casts Exhume, looking to get his Butcher back into play. However, Mark sacrifices his Glenelendra to counter the non-creature spell. He then returns to play with Persist. Sadly, with nothing left but a Dread Return in hand that can easily be countered, and knowing full well that Mark may have other spells that are able to stop it, Phil scoops it up, giving Mark a powerful comeback victory. For the first time ever in Cardboard MVP's history, I have to give the nod to both generals here. For Skullbriar, Phil was just one attack away from victory. If he had something, say, like a Berserk or an Unspeakable Symbol or a Hardened Scales earlier in the game, this would have easily been his game to win. And in the case of his opponent, well, it can't be denied here. In my opinion, Brago is one of the most underappreciated yet OP as ever generals in the colors of white-blue, aka Azorius. Being able to reuse your card effects over and over again to scry with, for example, the Augury Owl, untap your lands with the Drake, being able to draw extra cards from your Wellspring, and also having an untapped blocker at all times, it was a sound and powerful strategy, and those counterspells made it even tougher. But after all, that is what led Mark to victory. Do you agree with our picks? Let us know in the comments down below. And right here, right now, have a look at how you can win a foil promo from the vault, Vesuva. Alright guys, we're having our latest EDHCC giveaway, where the prize this time around is a foil from the vault, Vesuva. How do you enter? All you have to do is first, if you're not already subscribed by the way, smash the subscribe button and notification bells down below, as this contest is only open to subscribers. And after you subscribe, or if you're already subscribed for that matter, within the episodes of 87 and 90, in the comments down below, just let us know exactly what deck you would put your foil Vesuva into. And if you want a bonus entry, you can also follow us on Twitter and retweet any one of our episodes from 87 to 90 with the hashtag EDHCC giveaway. That will get you a bonus entry. You must be subscribed to the YouTube channel first, and then you can use this platform of Twitter to get yourself 2 possible chances to win. I hope somebody gives this awesome card a good home, because it's always fun to give back to the Magic community. So guys, enter, enjoy, and good luck. The winner will be announced in episode 91. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed this week's episode. If you're a fan of EDH gameplay and you like whether it be 1v1 or multiplayer and you want to be part of the ever-growing Command Your Challenge family, just make sure you smash the subscribe button and notification bell down below. We do weekly videos. Don't forget as well to like, comment, share our videos, but most importantly, enjoy them. On behalf of all of our members here, I'm your host, BT. Feel free to check out all of the videos in the channel. Join our game. It's now your turn. Cheers!